Sometimes when mixing, you might feel like you understand how a compressor works, but you're not sure exactly why you're using it in that moment. And choosing the right compressor or EQ for the right job, or knowing what settings to use, is not about technique. It's about being connected to what you're working with, and when you are, that piece of gear becomes part of the connection too. And every plugin and piece of gear has its own personality, its own feeling that it brings to the music. So when I know what feeling I want in a mix, I pick the tool that gives me that feeling right away in a very straightforward way. So let me show you a few plugins that I use almost every day and how I think about them. And before we start, I've got a free live seminar coming up as well, where I'll go even deeper into what I'm talking about here today. And I put a link right below if you want to join. This is something I learned from the analog world. Because when you're working with hardware, you can't just throw the same compressor on everything, because probably you only have one of each unit in the rack. So you start to think like, what is this particular piece of gear best at? What's its strength and emotional footprint? For example, when I used to work with a Zener limiter, I noticed it's amazing for creating this explosive, urgent sound, that kind of emotion that grabs you and gives a vocal intensity. Same with a TG1 compressor or a DBX 160. Those are what I called urgency compressors, and I use them whenever I want something to jump out of the speakers and feel more intense. I would never waste them on something soft or gentle. That's not what their magic is. On the other side, you have something like an LA2A, super smooth and cuddly. And that's what I use it for all the time. I would never try to make it sound explosive, because I would lose what makes it special. And over the years, I started collecting different tools that each have a very specific purpose and feeling. So let's say I pull up a Neve 1073. Its strength is that top end, that smooth, beautiful air around 10K. And if I want that kind of silky feeling in a mix, I would reach for a Neve every time. And in the same way, I would reach for a Chandler Curve Bender for what it's best at. To me, the magic is in the mid-range, around 2-3K. That's where you get that kind of crunchy but smooth tone for electric guitars. Or I would use it for adding fatness to bass at around 100 Hz. And the same with API EQs, for example. I love 3 areas in it. The 100 Hz for bass, 5K for acoustic guitars to make them shine and feel crisp, and around 12K for vocals. But it has a different feeling and flavor from a Neve EQ, for example. It's a bit more cold in a nice way. And a great way to learn your tools is to push them to their extreme first. So max them out and listen to what they sound like in this way. For example, crank an API, a Neve or a Helios EQ, and you will instantly hear the difference. And once you know that full force version of the sound, you will know how to use a touch of it in the mix, like a spice when you back it off. And that's how I learn tools myself, and perhaps you do the same thing too. And this applies to stereo bus compressors too, because as I see it, there are 3 types of glue you can add to a mix. And that's the main reason why we use stereo bus compressors in the first place. And the first one is a bit more of a punchy type glue, something you would get from an SSL compressor, for example. But then there is the other type of glue that is more of a low-mid punch, keeping the low end together. And I would personally use something like a Neve-style bus compressor for that. And the third one, which is what people think about usually when they talk about glue, is the warmer type sound, less transient and punchy. And for that, I would use a Varimu compressor, a Manley Varimu. And for a lot of people, that is sort of the face of mixed bus glue in many ways. But it's a different type of feeling than the SSL. Less punch and more cream. This is something you have to experience by yourself and to play with in your own mixes to fully grasp. It takes a lot of practice and mixing and playing around to get to the point where it's an instinctive choice and move without thinking too much. It's something I will talk about in my upcoming seminar, The Art of Mixing Vocals. It's free to join, and there's one coming up soon. So if you want to join, just click on the link below and add your name, and I hope to see you there. And if you have any questions or anything you want to share, feel free to leave a comment as well. I'm always happy to hear from you and your perspective on mixing too.